In Wisconsin, the stories start before sunrise. They start in a deer stand, in a duck blind, on the front deck of a bass boat. Welcome to the Flippin' Sticks and Throwin' Lead podcast. With your hosts, Eric Tasker and former Major League pitcher Paul Wagner, this is everything outdoors. Hunting, fishing, conservation. The wins, the misses, and the memories that stick with you for a lifetime. Out here, you earn your stories, and we're here to tell them.
Okay, well, I didn't surprise you this time. I was wondering why my mic was a little loud, but I sent you that we had to get a new intro.
Right.
So our friend Armin Sarian from the sports station, I said, hey, you got a nice big announcer voice. Why don't you cut this for us? Sure enough, sound effects and all. No more loon, which I know threw some people off. We've got a turkey, a water splash from catching fish, a shotgun blast, and maybe a soda pop opening up.
You chose wisely. You chose wisely, and I liked it. I think you wrote the script. I'm not saying you're a country music. Maybe you could be a writer,
a copywriter.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I do that for a living.
Well, no, I mean maybe you could submit with and then submit it to Morgan Wallen.
Morgan Wallen. There we go. Yeah.
Ella Langley.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Ella Langley.
Well, Paul Wagner, Eric Tasker here. It's the Flippin' Sticks and Throwin' Lead podcast. Hey, I'm really excited about today's episode because the fruits of our labor at ATA, making the trip down there, making some connections, has paid off. So we have somebody that I think anybody listening to this show is very familiar with, Mr. Jared Mills, a total killer, an Iowa guy, a baseball player. I know that we had a nice conversation while we were down there, and we kind of chatted with him a little bit just about, hey, man, we'd love to have you on. I know you've done a couple podcasts here and there. If you've got an hour of your time, it'd be great to catch up and just talk kind of shop as we're in a little bit of a lull right now. So we're going to dive into a bunch of different things, and maybe we're going to get some tips and tricks on frost seeding, talk about some of that stuff, some stand locations, some habitat management, and just kind of go through. We've got a whole sheet of questions for him. Yeah,
we do, in full open book. We have already talked to him, so we recorded this, and now we're coming back. I did that because I always slip up and say, we talked about this or we talked about that.
And then we don't.
And yes. Yeah. So yes, but it is really good. It's really exciting. It's a great interview. Time went so fast, and we were just talking before. We could have stayed. We could have talked to him for just almost another hour, probably,
right?
Because once you get into knowing, and it's like when you get to know somebody, things start to move fluidly,
right,
and just nonchalantly, and you talk about things and you realize that you have so many things in common with so many different people.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we really appreciate about the outdoors is just purely the fact that it's a commonality and it's a common bond, and it's not just the hunt, but it's the lifestyle that goes with it. It's everything that leads up to opening day, what happens on the last day of the season or whenever that might be, that it's your last sit, and kind of how that transition starts to play out throughout the year, and it turns into a full-time, full year-round activity for us to try and have something new hanging on the wall.
Exactly.
And what a great conversation. I mean, just somebody who is so well respected in the industry, and just somebody who we've been excited to talk to. I mean, we haven't really teased it at all because we're like, I'm not sure that this is going to come together, or like, we don't want to be a pest, and
right.
We would welcome the conversation, but at the same time, we want to just be respectful of people's time. So, but the one thing I want to point out here, Mr. Wagner, before we jump into this, we're in a new location today. We're in the basement. We're in the base camp location.
We're in Tasker's Tavern.
Tasker's Tavern. And we decided to kind of switch it up a little bit because we wanted to make sure that, like, we had like internet connection and just like that there were no issues whatsoever, because we're really excited about this and didn't want to have any snafus. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is that we've got a couple sponsors on board, and I'm like, you know what? For the Jared Mills interview, we got to have our backdrop right.
And it looks nice.
And it looks really nice. So we've got the logo up above us. We've got a big banner hanging back there. So we just want to say thanks to Charisma Customs. You know, we've talked about them quite a bit here on the show. It's kind of getting to be that time of year where a lot of people are looking to get their vehicles detailed. But if you're a Southeastern Wisconsin person, check them out, charismacustoms.com. Our newer sponsors, HHA USA, Chris Ham, thank you very much, sir. We have been in talks about what this is going to look like, how this partnership will come together for honestly months now. And it was just kind of a matter of just kind of figuring out what that looks like. So HHA USA, if you're not familiar with it, we're going to be talking a lot more about it over the next couple of weeks, but it's a nonprofit side of HHA Sports. So HHA is the site manufacturer, and Chris Ham actually went off and did a nonprofit side to help first responders, veterans, and people to have a healthy outlet for working on PTSD and to have kind of like a place for them to meet other people who are veterans or first responders, and establishing some of these outposts around the country that actually allow first responders and veterans to shoot their bows at a common time where they can bond and have a cup of coffee and just kind of talk about, you know, their experience and meet other like-minded people that love archery, but also have that background in serving.
Exactly. And Chris's ring up, if you could go to the ATA show, or you could go to the breakfast, or you could hear people speak, the people that Chris brings in to tell stories, and Chris's whole story is well documented, I believe, the way he talks to us, but him finding Christ and having everybody talk about it and how they've saved people. And the stories are inspirational to such an extent that I don't know about you, but I was almost sitting at that breakfast table, and we haven't talked about this. And I remember one or two of the stories, a couple of the segments right there, it almost brings a tear to your eye.
Yeah.
And if Chris can do this, and he does it with so many individuals, you look at that and what a gift, and what a job or a task that he has. And he found that, you know, he's found God for 10 years now, I believe he said, and what he's been led to do, and listening to these stories and what he does for these people to treat with their diseases and their fears and their evils and their nightmares is just incredible.
Yeah. So they actually have a number of shoots that are upcoming. One at Vortex, one at Matthews, one at HHA, and then one in the Green Bay area. Which you can find all of those details if you find them on Instagram, Facebook, or go to their website, hhausa.org. It's a great, great company that is doing the work that needs to be done in order to help these people who have risked their lives and went out and served our country. So thank you for that, Chris. As I said, more on that as we kind of dive into this. But and then our last one, Central Standard, wanted to just touch on them quick. That's still kind of developing, but we had to get the banner printed. So
right.
We're committed to it.
Right.
They're committed to it. It's just a matter of, you know, what is it that we're going to actually address with them. But they've got this cabin strength, this red cabin bourbon.
And we like that. We like that a lot. And
it's delicious, but it's dangerous.
It is. So the boys over at Central Standard, we're getting it worked out, but we're definitely going to get something. Jim Cantor's over there, and I've known Jim for many, many years. And I've met a bunch of those guys down at Fantasy Camp with the Brewers down in Arizona. They came down there and gave bottles to everybody as well. But a great company, great affiliate for us. And again, we're working things out, but we'll get it. Jim's assured us that, you know, we'll figure something out as we move through it. So I'm looking forward to that relationship as well.
Yeah. So I think we're going to just wrap it up right there with the intro. We're super excited about this. I mean, Jared Mills is just, like I said, somebody that everybody knows. And we did already, full disclosure, have that conversation about an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. And boy, it could have been 2 hours, 3 hours or more, just kind of dive in more in depth. But we had a bunch of different things we wanted to talk to him about. And I mean, this is a good one. This is a great one, and just really kind of the gist of what this show is all about is just very normal conversations about the things that we all love, and then we get to ask the questions of the expert.
Yeah,
which is better.
It's
better.
It is a lot better. It is a longer one, and if you get stopped or you have to go somewhere or something, try to jump back into it. Like Eric said, it's about an hour and 20. Did you say hour? So it's an hour and 20 minutes. But again, if you cut short at about the 45 minutes, try to catch back at it because not know which way or shape we go. But it was a good interview. Real good interview. Yeah.
So without further ado, for Paul Wagner, Eric Tasker, our interview with Jared Mills coming up next. All right, Mr. Wagner. Well, the fun part of the show and some of our favorite episodes that we do is when we have interviews. And we kind of took a leap of faith going down to ATA, and we were hoping to make some connections and meet some of these people that we see, killing all these big bucks and teaching a lot of people different things about the outdoors and hunting and getting into it and perfecting setups and doing some of that stuff. And we ran into a guy named Jared Mills, had a quick conversation with him, said, hey, we'd love to get you on at some point. And a common denominator between myself and Jared is that we're both affiliated with the Element Stand Company. And so that kind of opened our conversation. But a lot of people who pretty much are on YouTube and are a hunter have probably seen one of this guy's videos. So we'll jump into that. But Jared Mills, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you. If you want to just maybe give a little background on yourself and we'll kind of go from there. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to ask you, so we'll try and make it, as condensed as possible, but we appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It was good chatting with you guys at ATA for a little bit. I'm glad we were able to make this happen relatively quickly. So looking forward to it. But as you mentioned, Jared Mills, I live in eastern Iowa with my wife and my daughter. And I'm born and raised in Iowa. I did go to college in St. Louis and played baseball down there for 4 years and then back to Iowa. So pretty much, been fortunate to be in a great environment for whitetail hunting my entire life. Now, I've been fortunate to have a lot of good experience. I love documenting and sharing those with other guys, trying to make it as real as possible. And my biggest goal right now is just to keep it fun, right? This is the reason that we all do it. And, I just try to find new ways to keep learning every year and keep this thing fun and not put too much pressure on myself when it comes to all things hunting and outdoors. So, excited to be here and let's dive into it.
I think that's a good point that you made because, for many average Joes, we go out and we're just hoping to shoot a deer, but you're the first person that we've talked to that's kind of at a different level of there's almost an expectation. There's almost, I have to get it done. Do you feel that? And does that come into play when you start getting into your scouting and in the early part of the season, or maybe it's while you're glassing in summer? Does that affect you in any way? And how do you kind of overcome that, or how do you kind of deal with that? And maybe that doesn't affect you, but I feel like at some point it's got to play a little bit into your game plan.
No, it's a great question. So the short answer would be no, it doesn't affect me. And the reason I say that is because I've been fortunate to get to a place where I don't let any type of outside influence on me when it comes to that. If there are expectations for me to get it done on a big deer year after year, those expectations are coming externally. Those aren't mine. My expectations, I love challenging myself for myself. I don't ever want to think I have to kill a deer for the viewers. I have to kill a deer for the brands I work with. I think that's just that goes so against the reason we all hunt. Is to enjoy it, and challenging yourself is a great thing, whether it's hunting, whether it's, anything in life. And so I'm a definite believer in that, but that has to come from me internally and not outside pressures. And so I'm very, very grateful to be in that position and kind of see that. And I try to have conversations with other guys in my position as well, or guys that are trying to get into the industry. I try to tell them, like, that's the last thing you want to do, because it'll rob the fun very, very quickly if you put a lot of pressure on yourself to get the job done. And two, I think the biggest thing is it takes away, when you start thinking that way, it takes away from the entire appreciation of the whole process, right? And when you start to love the process of chasing the big deer and the journey of chasing a big deer and everything you learn along the way, everything you experience along the way, when you start to love and appreciate that over that end result and prioritizing the kill, man, it's so much more enjoyable. So many guys put so much pressure on that end result. If I don't kill a deer, what are my friends going to think? What are my social media people going to think? All that type of stuff. And it's just if you take a step back, it's such a silly way to look at it. And so you really have to learn to appreciate the process of it all and the work that goes into it, and the results will follow, obviously. But putting so much emphasis on the result, it really robs the fun out of it pretty quickly.
I would agree with you. When you're up there in that stand, realize that if you have the pressures just to harvest that animal, you're not getting everything. You're not seeing everything. You're not enjoying it. Hunting is, yes, harvesting, but hunting is also solitude. It's with yourself and thinking. You're 25 feet. I'm not a high guy, so I go about 25 feet high. I'm 25 feet closer to God and seeing what he does and what he provides. It's just so incredible. And if you press on that issue, like you said, you're going to lose focus. And if your only idea is just to harvest a big animal for all the reasons you mentioned, you're kind of losing what this is all about. For
sure. And it's so easy to do, unfortunately, in our social media age that we live in. Everyone sees other people having success, and you think that that's what you have to do to be relevant. And it's been magnified through social media, unfortunately. But you really just have to kind of get back to what helps me is thinking about my early days of getting into hunting and the outdoors, and how exciting every little thing was. You saw a deer and it was, a big deal and it's super exciting. Or you had an encounter with a 1.5-year-old buck and it was so exciting. Like, if you think back to that and try to kind of pull pieces of those feelings back, you start to appreciate the entire experience a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do my best to try and relate to both of our hunting seasons, but I feel like the biggest common denominator is just exactly what you said there, that, you kind of get to a point, like I've shot one really nice buck, and ever since then I went in like a 3-year drought. But I also knew, like, hey, I shot a nice deer. I don't need to shoot like the next buck that walks out in front of me. And so when I started to kind of take a step back and just enjoy being out there, we know there's a lot of deer out there, but being up in a tree and having a handful of deer walking around you and just kind of taking it in. And it helps a lot, because it's not like, oh my God, the first deer that I see, I have to be able to take it. It doesn't have to be like that. And just almost like a maturing as you get, kind of farther and farther into this. But like Wade said, appreciating just being out there and having the camaraderie of, having a couple guys or calling your buddy and saying, hey, I finally got it done, and being able to celebrate. It kind of reshapes your perspective on the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. Just to simplify, you just fall in love with the process, fall in love with the experience, and then everything else will follow. Even things such as like passing deer that, a lot of people would be happy to shoot. It's the same thing. Like, if you put yourself in a good position and you could have killed that buck, like, what's the difference? The only difference is you didn't pull the trigger, but you still got to, you still get to experience everything that goes along with the kill. To me, that's a very successful encounter. But just appreciating all of that, and when you don't put that pressure on yourself for the end result, you're gonna have a lot of enjoyment just in the encounters themselves.
Yeah. I think I've really started to be able to appreciate that. My dad is 72 now, I think, and if you ever have hunted with a guy that cannot pass a deer, that's my dad. Doesn't care if there's horns, if there's a rack, it doesn't matter. He's going to take it. But, he's hunted for 55 years, and who am I to say that if that gets you excited, go ahead, man. Exactly. I'll help you drag it out, and we'll have a couple beers back at the camp, and we'll celebrate this. But as long as it makes you happy, that's really all that matters. I mean, I think I told the story that this year we hunt relatively close to one another, so I can kind of see what's happening in his area from where I'm at. And I just knew there was one time he's like, oh, there's a buck that came in. It was kind of small, and then I saw it like 3 hours later. It walked past me and it walked right into him. And I was like, big mistake. That deer is not making it out of the woods. And then it just makes it more fun. It's like, to have that story and to be able to share that experience with my dad, which, you never know how much longer you have to be able to do this, and that they have the health and wellness to be able to get out there. I'm like, go ahead, man. We'll drag this thing out of here and we'll celebrate it just as if it were the biggest deer that you ever shot. It's
100%.
It's all part of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and everyone's situation is different, right? There's a lot of guys out there that, they have their 1 week of vacation every year to hunt. That's the only time they get in the woods, or maybe they just have a couple weekends. Those guys are going to look at their opportunities a lot differently. Or, like your dad, that gets him jacked up to shoot a deer. I mean, that's awesome. The only thing that I would push back on against someone that's in that, like you said, you don't know how many quality hunts you have left in your life. And if passing a deer extends your season, like you have sufficient time to hunt and get out there, and you, instead of experience an encounter like that one time a year because you shoot the first deer that walks by, think about if you got to do it 6 or 7 or 8 times a year, just by enjoying the encounter instead of being tagged out and not going back out there. Not to say, I've done this plenty of times where I tag out and I still go out hunting, sit there with the camera and still appreciate that experience. But yeah, just the more positive experiences and time in the woods that you can have, it's so crucial, because you nailed it. You don't know how many you have left. Nothing. I mean, you're not guaranteed anymore. That's just the reality of it. And so the more you can keep it fun, the better.
Yeah. So what is the earliest that Jared Mills is tagged out in a season?
In Iowa, not if you're coming to. That's one thing I want to touch on too. Is you said to us, if you recall, you said, I've never hunted Wisconsin, and I don't know if you were serious or you were jagging us, or I didn't know what was going on. But an Iowa deer, obviously you can sit around, but if you go out of your, I don't know, you go to Illinois or something like that, obviously then the question differs. But yeah, what is, as Tasker said, what is it?
So for Iowa, I think actually the earliest I've killed a buck would have been 2 years ago, October 7th. Our season opens the 1st. So, 6 or 7 days into the season, I killed a buck. And it's not necessarily tagging out per se, because in Iowa as a landowner, you get another tag. And so I was able to continue to hunt like I hadn't killed a tag.
Sure.
But that's the earliest that I've killed a buck that I can recall is October 7th.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, and for us, so our season starts usually the second Saturday of September in Wisconsin. And it seems so odd to sit in a tree stand where you're in you'd rather be in shorts and a t-shirt, because, the day that I killed a big doe, we had a doe out at Wag's place that was really just kind of a problem. She was a bully, and she'd kick all the other bucks off the food plot, and nice mature doe. And he's like, we got to get in there early, and we got to take care of her right away. Well, I think it was the third day of the season. It was like September 15th or something like that. It's like 85 degrees, and I'm sitting out there, and I'm just dying out there. And it's like, it's exciting to get it done. I mean, for me, it was like ending a 2-year drought or a 3-year drought since I shot my buck. So I'm like, I just need to kind of get the confidence back up and, do Wags a favor and take care of this one. But I don't know, man. I'm not an opening day guy because I don't want to sit out there when it's so freaking hot. I'm like, when we start get into some drop offs in temp or, even if it's like 50 degrees, but I mean, I think it was like 86 degrees that day. And it's like, I have 10 minutes to get this deer cleaned or it's going to be a problem, so, but it just goes to that a lot of people get really excited about the first part of the year. And, what happens in Wisconsin, we get 1 buck tag for archery, 1 for gun season. So it's like you shoot a buck in September and you've got the best 2 months of the year coming up that you're just sitting on your hands, or you're getting out there and you're just trying to, do some doe management. But
and you're missing the experience that we talked about.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't get 2 buck tags like you do. We get the 1. So harvesting does is pretty much maybe a staple. We fill our freezer, we take care of it, we try to do some doe management. And if you don't, where I am, there's a lot of ag fields. And that's a question I want to come to you. I'm not necessarily talking about food plots and water hole locations like I had mentioned to you. It's my neighbor. When you have like a 60-acre parcel, I don't have 500. I don't have 700. I'm surrounded by ag fields, and there's a lot of pushing around. There's a lot of machinery. There's a lot of action. So if we don't harvest some of these does, they get hit when that October, November comes. You can drive down the road, and there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot in Iowa, but there's a hell of a lot of deer kills in Wisconsin, and we've got to do that. So that's kind of how we play. They give us so many doe tags for an additional $10. The problem is they give us $10 for a doe tag, but they don't give us like 50% off freezers. If you want to go, I got to go to a Home Depot or something to get a new freezer because I got a freezer full of animals. But yeah, we eat them all and it's good. But that's kind of how our seasons go. We go more does, take them early, and then save that buck tag experience.
Yeah, I enjoy shooting a lot of those too, and I like shooting them early because that's typically when the freezer's about empty from the year before, and also it's just you have a little more time to deal with them. You're not worried about always targeting a buck those first couple weeks of October, and so I kill probably, I don't know, on average 12 to 15 does a year. And that's spread out, spread out on different properties, not just on one property. But, I love shooting does. And two, I think, you mentioned it too, when you're talking about your buck drought and shooting that doe, like, I think it's imperative to just have some successful kills early in the season to build that confidence for a potential shot at a buck later. People get so worked up on shooting at a buck, and I think you can alleviate some of that by just building that confidence on does early. Just seeing a well-placed arrow go through a deer, quick kill, just build some confidence. Putting yourself in some different shot situations and just that experience, I think it plays a big part, later in the season. You take an entire year off of shooting at animals, like, get back to experiencing a lot. It's not the same as shooting at a target. So kill a couple of does early, build that confidence, and you're more likely to be ready to rock when you get an opportunity at a buck.
Yeah. I just had a buddy of mine that I've been going through trying to adapt to shooting a thumb release, and it's been a little bit of an interesting story. I mean, at least this time I didn't send any arrows to the next county, but one of my buddies had commented on the post, and he just said, I don't know what it is, but I just have such bad buck fever, whether it's does or bucks. And my response was, kill more deer. That's the only way that you can shake that, because you can shoot at foam targets all summer long, all winter long. But until you get out, if you went out and shot 3 does early, you'd be in a totally different mindset come end of October, early November, just to have that confidence built up that you can do it and that you can get in there.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. I think it makes a huge difference just getting that experience under your belt.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned, hunting multiple different properties. And I don't know how much you want to get into it, but I think on one of the podcasts that you did, you have like about a 50-acre parcel that's like your own. Do you still have that, or was that a different property?
I'm not 100% sure which one you're referring to, but
I think it was about a year ago or so.
I own one. I own one personal farm that I bought last spring. It's about 160 acres. But and then the rest are just permission ground, whether I work for the landowner or whatever. And those vary in size. Some down to that 50-acre size, some up to 150, 200 acres. And but a lot of times it's just some are exclusive. Some are sharing with others as far as hunting permission goes, kind of a typical scenario.
So one of the questions that I had, Wag's place is about 70 acres. And I thought that'd be a nice kind of comparison of tell us kind of how you felt going into maybe even just give one of those examples or any kind of correlations with your personal farm of you find the property, you start to do your whitetail management with it, and you start to do some of your habitat. What's kind of your game plan when you're looking at that parcel for the first time, or considering a lease, or getting permission? Kind of give us a walkthrough of your mindset going into it, just thinking okay, this works for bedding. This is going to be a really nice safety blanket for these deer, or this is going to be a morning spot, or this might be an afternoon spot. What's your kind of game plan going into it? And maybe some of those changes that you would implement right away, whether it's water, or just kind of an open-ended question of just surveying land and access parcels.
Yeah. Obviously a good question, but a loaded one. There's you could talk for hours on that strategy side. But the first thing is understanding all properties are different. You have to treat them individually. Like you mentioned, that 70-acre size. Actually, where I killed my big deer this past fall was on a 70-acre piece. Actually, it's closer to 50 because there's 20 of it's on the other side of the creek that never access or do anything with. So, and it's a small parcel. Obviously, deer aren't going to core up there. You have to, kind of be there, be right place, right time when they are there. And that's the case with most of the properties I hunt. None of them are big enough to hold deer 100% of the time. Deer travel way more than I think we even think about or realize. So ultimately, your property is, from a management standpoint, is really only as good as your neighbors, unless you're getting into that 800 to 1,000 acre ballpark where you actually can hold deer for the majority of the time. But I don't have anything near that. But the way I approach a new property, I'm not a big. I'll start with the aerial map, but I'm not a big develop strategy from an aerial map guy. I want boots on the ground. I want to see every little piece of that property that I can. So I try to cover it, and just based on my experience, try to get a game plan of how the deer are going to utilize the property. And that comes with a caveat for me, because I'm also one of those guys that does not believe you can figure out a property in a day or 2 days. I think it takes at least an entire season of hunting the property, if not more, to really figure that out. Learning the general direction of the deer movement. Some properties, are a little bit more obvious than others. Certainly, it's easier to know where they're going to bed, where they're going to feed, and where they're going to get from point A to point B. But most of the time, it takes some tree stand time to figure out. A lot of observation of how the deer utilize the property. how they're getting from point A to point B, what's the direction, the general direction of movement in the evenings versus the mornings, how much are they coming on and off of you from the neighbors, where are they coming on and off your property at, all those types of things. So like my new farm that I own is I closed on it in April of last year. So I had a little bit of off season to put in some work, but last fall was a complete learning experience for me. So I did some of the things, put in some food, some cover, things like that when in the limited amount of off season time I had. But I didn't want to make any large scale changes until I learned more about how the deer utilize it. Having an entire season of encounters and hunts really helped me going into this off season. And now I'm, like a kid on Christmas morning. I can't wait to start working on it based on what I learned last year, So it's, to me, it's a process. I always, there's a lot of land consultants and things like that. That's big. And I understand there's a lot of value to parts of it, but the thing I've never understood about those is how, if a guy can come in, you pay him for a day and he tells you how to hunt your property, quite simply, I think he's lying or just guessing, I just don't think you can figure stuff out that quickly. And so that's how I try to approach, especially a new property to me. I try to be patient with it. Yes, there are things I can draw from based on my experience on other properties that may or may not be similar, but until you actually watch the deer and observe the deer, there's still a lot to learn. And it's a decent learning curve.
I think I like that. You have to learn your property, but my biggest thing I've learned, I bought a farm out in Kansas, or I had a farm out in Kansas, out in that Longford area, Salinas, and we have issues. I think you can always look, like you said, where they're coming from, where they're bedding, how they feed, how they drink, how they cover, how they sleep. But I'm such an advocate. When you look at a piece of property, and I'm assuming you did it with your farm recently purchased, what's on the outside of it? Neighbors are huge for me. Neighbors will cut, neighbors will shoot, neighbors will do so many different things. And somebody told me, well, you wanted to put this little clover plot. I want to put it over here on the side. And I go, don't worry about it. I said, my neighbor doesn't hunt. And he says, because he doesn't hunt today doesn't mean he's not going to hunt tomorrow. He said, so be careful. And neighbors have been so detrimental to me. And obviously I can't control ag fields. I can't control the moisture in the crops and when they harvest, and corn this year was dry, so they harvested a little quicker. Less standing corn in Wisconsin than normal. Usually it goes into a little bit more into the season. We've found so many things where the corn, the deer will stay in that corn because they have the cover. When the rotation comes up as beans, they'll like stabilize, or they'll hang out in my area a little bit longer before they go to those fields, because obviously they don't feel as comfortable as they do in corn. But I think so much depends on a neighbor. And like you said, somebody comes in for one day and they're going to tell you how to develop your property. They haven't seen it. They haven't experienced it. They don't know exactly what's happening. I'm sure they ask for the crop rotation, but you know what? There's so much you have to learn. I've been here for 20 years and I learn every day. I walk different paths. I see different trees go down. Rock walls are knocked over through freezing and unfreezing and frost. Barbed wire fence gets knocked down. There's so many different avenues that you got to check, and that's just your property, not necessarily the neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. Those are all really good points. And that, like I said, on that consulting side, there are benefits to it. Like, a guy can look at a property and say, yeah, this property is definitely lacking food, or it's lacking quality cover, or, really could use some diversity of habitat. Like those things are valuable to get. But as far as the hunting strategy of it, right, to your point, there's so many factors, and those factors change so much too. Neighbors are a huge part of it, and that pressure. Like I've seen properties where there's so much pressure on the neighbors that it helps the property, the farm you're hunting, because of the deer get pushed out, and they make adjustments once season rolls in. Or maybe it's, hey, my neighbor doesn't plant a lot of food plots, but he does leave 2 acres of standing beans, and the deer, really move that direction as we get later into the season. All those things like that, you start to learn and make adjustments to. But there's no doubt it's a long process. But that's the fun part too, right? If you can figure all this out in a day, we're not even sitting here talking about it. It's
right.
There's no fun in it.
Yeah.
It needs to always remain a steep learning curve, because that's half the fun.
Yeah, what would you do with all your free time then?
Exactly. I'd have a lot more money. I know that.
So first season, I guess if you closed on it in April, this would be your first kind of real season of doing shed hunting and getting out there and doing some post-season scouting. Have you gotten out and have you found any sheds yet? Have you been out, putting the miles in?
I've kind of been waiting on better conditions. I think most of my deer have dropped now. But I love going out on cloudy, rainy type days. And we just haven't had very many. We're super dry, had a lot of sunny days. And so hopefully within the next week or so, I'll get out and actually put some miles on, try to get a group of guys to go and really grit it. But I have been doing a lot of TSI work, which is one thing my farm really needs. And so pretty much every time I've been there, I've been slowly but surely knocking out some acres of timber stand improvement.
Yeah. So are you close by? Is your farm pretty close to where you're at that it makes it for a 20-minute trip, or is it an hour? Or?
Yeah, it's a little over an hour, unfortunately.
Okay.
And it's doable. But when you're hunting there quite a bit, there was a lot of 3:30 mornings this fall, and it's a little bit of a drive. That's the only downside. I love the farm. I love everything about it. It's just it's a jaunt getting over there.
Yeah. Well, I like to, as the puppy just came down here and made her appearance. It's so fun getting out with her and just doing that. And I just actually had a company, Dog Bone, reach out to me and want to do something together where they've got the antler scent with the dummy antlers and do some of that training. And we found a shed last year. We found a nice 8-pointer last year, or a one side, so it was just 4 points. But it was fun just to get out and do that. And man, I don't know if you got dogs, but it's just so fun to see them work and to see them run and see them sniff around and have the time of their life, kind of in their element, what they're bred to do. So
that's awesome. I don't personally have one. I would love to get one at some point, but it is fun to watch them work. I have watched that before.
Yeah.
Are you getting ready? I didn't ask this. Are you getting ready for turkey season? Do you turkey hunt your property out there, or are you mainly just, turkeys are turkeys, but they're I'm a whitetail guy.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah, it's I kind of look at turkeys. It's a fun way to pass the time, but a lot of times I set out to turkey hunt, and I end up getting distracted and do something deer related. I'll give turkeys the first 30 minutes of the day, but if they don't want to cooperate, I'm out. I'm not.
Yeah.
I like chasing them around with the bow. I think with turkeys, I like taking people more than I enjoy hunting myself anymore, just because turkey season is such a good way to get people hooked on the sport or introduce them, or because you're almost guaranteed to have at least some type of interaction. As opposed to deer hunting can be pretty brutal at times. So I like that, and again, I like chasing around with the bow or the recurve or whatever. So I enjoy it. It's just I tend to spend more time on the deer management side anymore.
Yeah, we talked a little bit. I don't know if you want to get into this right now, but some of your memorable hunts. Obviously, you have so many, and we kind of talked a little bit off the air or a little bit before. I really like the fact that when I don't know how to put this. So when I watch or when I see you hunting, sometimes I feel like when you do have a cameraman and you're not by yourself. So let's just say you have a cameraman and I don't see him, but I hear you talking, and sometimes I'm like, are you talking to me? I'm not here, Jared. No, that's not me. So I usually do it when I exercise. So I'll ride the bike, or I'll be an elliptical machine or something like that. And sometimes I get caught up into it. So it's nice. I feel like I'm there. And that's one thing that I think is a positive that I think you do. And I don't know if, you think I'm just weird or other people do too, but it's like you had this one hunt. I don't even remember how long ago it was, but you were in that ghillie suit and you guys were sitting on a knoll, I'm going to say a little bit to the, like a bump where usually like a tractor will push, grub off of a field, and it kind of built up and you guys were there and the buck kept coming across that line, that corn line. And you had a cameraman that time. And I'm like, I'm there. I got to go out and get a ghillie suit. I got to hurry up. But and if you can elaborate on some of that, I don't know if I'm weird or off base, or you like that, or you do like having a cameraman, or you don't like it, or you like self-filming. If you can kind of go into some of that.
For sure. Yeah. So, which is crazy to think about that hunt, it's actually this deer right here. That one I killed on the brush pile. But that was 5 or 6 years ago, which is just, it's crazy how fast it goes by. I enjoy having a cameraman from the standpoint of you don't have to worry about anything else. For me, as primarily a self-filmer, I'm always so focused on the camera, which I love because I'm very passionate about the video. But and some of the camaraderie in the tree. But those are probably the only two positives that I like about having a cameraman. I would always prefer to be by myself in the tree. First of all, I feel like I can get away with murder compared to having two people in the tree. When I have two people, it's so hard.
It's two bodies, it's two silhouettes.
You're doubling everything. Double the scent, the noise, all that stuff. But two, I think you mentioned it earlier that it's tree stand time. It's a time of solitude. It's a time of reflecting, kind of just being in your own head, and that's what I like about hunting by myself. Yes, I enjoy. I keep pretty busy filming, and there's a lot of work with regards to trying to self-film at a high quality level. But just having quiet time out in the woods is valuable to me, and that's probably the biggest reason I like to self-film and be out there by myself. But there's no doubt having a cameraman makes it so much easier, and especially self-film almost exclusively. I had a cameraman maybe once or twice throughout this past fall. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. It's like all I have to do is draw my bow back and shoot. This seems easy, compared
nothing else to worry about.
The difficulty of self-filming.
Sure.
But and it's fun to catch up with a buddy in the tree. You always have some good conversations in the stand and things like that. But if given the choice, I'd always prefer to hunt alone.
I just saw something else that you were saying. I think somebody asked you the question of, what do you love about self-filming, and I think there were a couple different points, but one is just to be able to relive that memory for yourself. Two is, it's a challenge, so it adds a layer to kind of what you're doing. But what often gets overlooked is you get to actually see your shot placement and to be able to go back and make a call on hey, we're going to wait a little bit, or, this deer's dead. We're good right now. We can go after it. I love that kind of thought process. I self-film. Now, the one time that when I was self-filming and I shot my buck, I hit record, or I hit the power. I just had a GoPro at the time, which now I run a Sony camera, but I had a GoPro at the time, and it was delayed in booting up. And so when I hit record, I thought I had everything. And then when I hit record again to stop recording, it was in my pocket climbing out of the tree. So I'm like, I just have such an appreciation for people who are doing that, because like you said, there's so much that goes into it. You got to have the frame in right. You got to have just so many things. And it's extra movement of kind of going back and forth and just kind of getting things situated. But a cool thing to think about with that.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it, and people probably don't appreciate it enough, like how hard it is to pull off. And it's almost one of those things, if there's something that can go wrong, it will, as you experienced. But yeah, that third key of shot placement is huge, and it's another reason I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate for filming, one, for the memories. I think the documentation of your memories, even if you don't share with the public, is for you and family, whatever. But to be able to relive those moments, our memories fade. Like our memories, the further time goes on, they get fuzzier, right? But if you have, I mean, for everybody, but like if you have the video to pull up, it's amazing how much it jogs the little details of those experiences, things that you never ever remember without seeing that video. It's like it triggers additional memories within your brain to relive, and it just makes it so much more real. And so that's number one. That's the one reason reason number one, I'm an advocate for film. But two, on that shot placement thing, that can a lot of times be the difference between recovering or not recovering a deer is your decision on when to go after the deer and how to go after them. And you even, like, a lot of guys, if they're self-filming and not doing it for any type of quality level, a lot of times, they'll stay really zoomed out or use a second angle camera where the deer's really small and it's hard to see exactly where that arrow hits. But even having the deer's reaction, a lot of times you can still see that. Even if you can't pinpoint where the arrow entered, you can still see the deer's reaction. And that's better than nothing. That's still some valuable information when it comes to a tracking decision. So yeah, I mean, that's, it may come at a cost a little bit for me, but I always know I can perfectly review the shot. And so, potentially I do have a hard time recalling without looking at the video. But it partly could be because I've trained my mind that I always have that in my back pocket. So I don't have to waste mental energy and knowing exactly what happened on that shot, because that's hard to do in the moment of truth. I can't tell you how many track jobs I've been on where, a buddy or a guy will tell me where he hit the deer based on his recall. And it's not, like you get to the deer and like, well, you clearly didn't hit him right behind the shoulder, whatever it is. Like it's just so hard to recall that in the moment. It's almost like you black out. And so having that video to fall back on is huge.
Yeah, it is hard because it's a really high stress situation of just going through that and making sure to execute and to do all that. I mean, even just to get any of those details is better than nothing. Like you said, I mean, a deer's reaction, did it mule kick? Did it, do whatever? But, just to be able to get a little bit of that insight is only going to help, as you go into that recovery. Since I'm like more into photo video production, what's your favorite lens? Like, are you like a 24-70 kind of guy, like a zoom lens, or what's your preferred lens for self-filming while you're out there?
Yeah, so my primary lens that I use for just like everyday stuff and B-roll stuff and interviews is a 24-105.
Okay.
Gives me good range, but I'll if I get in a tree, I'll film some, quick B-roll and, supporting shots and stuff like that, maybe some pans. And then I'll take that lens off and I'll put on a 70-300 for the rest of the hunt.
Okay.
I use a 70-300 for all the deer related footage, basically.
Sure. Okay. That's good to know. I have one of those.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Yeah. No, that's good. I was really curious about that because I wasn't quite sure if, like a 70 would be enough, but I suppose, for, some of those longer ones or as they're running away, you want that ability to be able to kind of reach out. I mean, I use my 70, I have a 70-350 and it's great for, doing some of that summer scouting. And we've got so many egg fields around us with deer that it's nice just to be able to get a little better idea of what those deer kind of look like. No, that's good. Okay, that's good to know. So shoot some B-roll when I'm getting attacked by the wasps in the redneck.
That is true. That was a preseason. That was a preseason fall. We had baseball and I didn't come back. And then I do radio for the local team in Milwaukee for the Brewers. And then we have a team and these guys get out there and I thought I had it all cleaned up. There's still mud on the floor of a couple of the rednecks and there's a wasp nest in there. And I'm like, oh brother, what's going on?
Yeah.
All part of the experience.
It's all part of the experience. So I that hunt ended with me like basically just swatting bees. There was like one that got me in the back and Wags is like, are you getting out already? And I was like, no, I just got stung by like 7 bees. I'm sitting on the ground fine now.
They hide. They hide like under the carpet and like you can go in there and I don't know if you do muddies or rednecks or what you do, but you get in there and I'm like, I clean it out or open the windows and all of a sudden you come in that next morning or that afternoon and there's like 500 more flies in there. And I'm like, where do you guys come from?
Yeah, I will say I've been using and started working with a company called Next Gen out of Pennsylvania, and I've had experience with their blinds over the past 3-4 years, something like that. But it's incredible. I don't know if it's just they seal their blinds up tighter than everyone else, but they're the only blinds that, most blinds that I've hunted out of experience are what you've described. You let them sit out for a year and you come back and they're full of flies and wasps and whatever. These ones, like you walk into it a year later and the carpet still smells new and there's not a single insect in there, and it's impressive and kind of changed the way I look at blinds a little bit.
Yeah, and we with our rednecks, we usually we'll hunt tree. I'm more of a ladder guy. You're a climber, a couple of hang-ons, but we use the rednecks that they're basically set up for gun. It's for the individuals we're trying to get right now into a disability hunt. We're trying to get things where other people can enjoy the outdoors. And yes, but I don't get to there enough. We don't get there, and there's so many people in there, and unfortunately, I don't have a cleaning service, and I feel so bad.
I'm the cleaning service. You want to come out and hunt out here, make sure to clean that thing up. It's funny, though. It only happened after I started running the Thermacell because the mosquitoes were so bad. And so as the Thermacell started running and like that scent got up to the top corner because it's so dark in there, I couldn't even see it until they started flying around. So it was like the Thermacell got them all angry, and then they start flying around. There's like 30 of them in there. I'm like, it's time to leave. I'm out of here. So, and then do you run the Elevate camera arm then?
I do. Yep.
That thing is so nice.
It is. Yeah. They did a good job with that. And it handles everything I need while still being packable and lightweight, which is key when you're self-filming. Like every half a pound makes a difference. In terms of just your frustration of self-filming being less. I run the Clutch Pro camera arm, and that thing's awesome. Yeah, and it's just it's nice with the multiple angles that you can kind of get out there and do some of that. And I mean, when I go up north, I usually just leave it on the tree for the week, and we do like a 9-day rutcation up north, and awesome. I'll just leave it on, I'll strap it on, and just take my camera out every night. But it just makes it so much easier to kind of get that nice reach with the 3 extensions. And sure. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, man, I got to get that, because I had a different one that was just a big bulky one. I'm like, this thing weighs like 10 pounds compared to the Elevate one that was like 2 pounds or 1.5 pounds or whatever it is. Yeah. It's so easy to get up there and get in there and get everything set up. It makes a big difference. Most of them are either too bulky, or if they are lightweight, they don't support heavier camera and lens setup, and this one's been awesome. Yeah.
All right, Wags, what do you wanna? What other questions you got? I know we got a lot here. I just don't know which direction you want to go with.
The one thing I really have found out realizing my property, and everybody's property is different, like you said. I get that, and you have to realize what it is. But I've come to the conclusion over the years that water is the most important. I mean, you can have, I don't care if you have brassicas, rapes, clover, you got beans here, you got a forage bean, you got this, you got water. And again, if you really think about it, it is a very simple answer, but water is so important. And unfortunately, I do not have a creek or a river running through my property or even on the border or on the lot line. So we have to create water for them. And I think that has become the point where strategically placing water. Now, I don't know if your farm, 160 acres, I'm assuming there's water on it and you've done a lot of stuff, but water is so valuable. And I want to kind of hear your take on water compared to food, or is it a mutual, or is it the same? You know, the human body needs water and food, but you know, you need water more than you need food.
Right. I think it's critical. Like you said, I think it's a very important aspect of it. The deer need it. And one of the more eye-opening things on my farm is when I was scouting, I found it's basically a little natural spring down in this little bowl, and it would never freeze over, even in like negative 20 degree temps.
Nice.
It stayed open at least in one corner. I assume where the water was kind of coming out of the ground. And the deer, this thing, I wish I could show you a picture, but it looks like a cattle lot around it. I mean, everything is just mashed. The deer, I've run cameras on it, you know, this whole season and off season, and the deer in there all the time. It's not really a huntable location because it's in a bowl, but the deer just, it's like, it might be the best inventory spot on my farm because every deer ends up there at some point. Doesn't go very long without. And I have a 4.5 acre pond on my farm, so I know they drink out of that too. It's just, you know, it's easier to see that when it's such a small area, like a little. This spring is like, you know, maybe the size of a car hood. Like it's not that big, you know, so it's easy to have a camera and know every deer that goes in there and takes a drink out of it. And it's not just deer. It's squirrels, it's coyotes, it's everything goes to this little natural spring water hole, especially during the winter when everything else is frozen over. So, you know, that's kind of the proof of how important water is. And I've been fortunate that most of the properties I hunt have some type of water source, whether it's a pond or a creek or a river or whatever. I have not, and I probably will on my farm put in 1 or 2 water holes this off season. To be honest, I haven't done a whole lot of that in the past. I've tended to lean more towards just figuring out a way to hunt the existing water sources rather than making a man-made one from a strategic hunting standpoint. And not that I think there's anything wrong with that. It's just, I think property by property, you kind of just have to decide like how much you want to alter movement and you know, manipulate movement versus, you know, if you have the opportunity to hunt them with their natural existing movements, you know, you do it that way. But whatever you do, like the deer need water, and if your property doesn't have it, you better supply it. Otherwise, they're going to have to go somewhere else to get it.
Yeah, I get the manipulation part. That's right. But, you know, with hinge cutting and funneling and pinch points and stuff like that with downwood. But yeah, I think water, I have to make a real good hard look and see where it is. And I guess my situation is now I don't want to hunt over the water hole, but I want it to be accessible so that they come. I don't change their patterns 100%, but then they realize that they can maybe stay here a little bit longer because there is water here or that and stuff like that. But I understand and respect the manipulation part and hunt nature as it is and go into my 160 acres and then play it and learn it. But I have to do something.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of the things you decide. You decide based on what your property needs. You decide based on how much time you have to hunt. You decide based on what your goals are. Like, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's like any type of hunting activity to do. It's, you know, whether you pick up a bow or a gun, that's your decision based on your situation. You do all those things based on your situation, not other people's. And I think putting in man-made water holes is just another one of those. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's also a lot of fun to try to not manipulate their movement and figure them out 100% on their home turf. So, there's just different ways, but for sure, like I said, if your property doesn't have it, you got to find a way to put it in. There's just no way around it.
Yeah. We were just talking not that long ago. Wags just got, as he said, doing some of those man-made. What are they, like 160 gallon like buckets that we're going to just try and strategically place. He had a smaller one the last couple of years. I mean, they just hammer it, and it's like every other day going out there and putting 50 or 60 gallons in. It's tough. I mean, they're working through it, but you just want to make sure that you've got enough for them without like over accessing, because you have to refill it, so frequently. So
we had a couple players come out and hunt, and one of the rules was you had to carry 2 5-gallon buckets like an old mason. You got to fill it up. Now I'm like, hey, you guys coming out today? Go hit some balls, take some fielding practice and stuff, and do your winter workout. And why don't you come out? No, we'll pass today. Because all we do is carry water for you.
That's hilarious. What are you using for? Are you using like cattle trough type, or are you using something else?
Yeah, got it from we have the Fleet Farm Tractor Supply here. It's a thicker rubber. It's not a plastic. I want to say prefer. I don't know what the brand name is, but yeah, and it's not as deep as you would think. It's more of a surface area. So when we dig it, I don't have to get the excavator or anything really, unless we get into the roots or where we decide. We have not placed them yet, but they only go probably down about 12 to 18 inches. And I don't want to get it to where I wanted a really deep one and put it to ground level, because then I want them to use it. I don't necessarily want them to. I don't want them to jump into it, but I also don't want it to look like a dog dish either. So we're gonna try to figure out. But that's what we're using, those thicker rubber ones from Tractor Supply and the Fleet Farms and the Farm and Fleets.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Like I said, I haven't really done any of it, but I have thought about like what is the best situation. I would think wider and shallower would be better, so the deer aren't getting on their knees to drink.
Correct.
But then I thought about like, do you keep it above the ground, or do you bury it even with the ground or just below, to where you actually get some natural runoff and you're not filling it manually every time, on your own every time. So I've thought about all that stuff. I just haven't personally done it much.
Yeah, so we won't do the natural runoff. It won't necessarily work. The topo on my property drops to the bed. So when we play thermals, and again, you know more about it than I do. These guys do it, the thermal. I just look at deer activity. I don't just let you play, those different things. It gets too deep for me. But I'm going to keep them probably, let's just say that water hole is, I'll just make up a number, 30 inches. I'll probably go 15 in and 15 out. Or if it's 24 inches, I'd go 12 in, 12 out. Kind of try to make it where there is a lip so no runoff will be possible.
Yeah, gotcha. Good to know.
So as we sit here, it'll be, end of February. What's your game plan for, say, the next couple months? I mean, it's kind of an interesting time for you just with a new property last year. You've got your 1 year under your belt. What's your 90-day game plan? Is it a spring plant? Is it, first it's shed hunting, then a little turkey hunting, then you're going to start doing your planting and stuff for summer? Or maybe just run us through what your next 90 days or 6 months looks like.
Yeah, so I still have a lot of chainsaw work I want to do, before things start to come out of dormancy. Yeah, it's twofold. It's a benefit for the timber too. Like a lot of the trees are just too stacked up on top of each other on my farm that they're not, the growth is not optimized. So I'm trying to free up some of those trees just from a production standpoint, acorn production, just overall tree health. But it also creates some instant, ground level cover, bedding cover for the deer. It's going to create more browse with the sunlight coming in. So that's this is the time of year to do it for me. So that's priority number one, is to get as many acres as I can done this year, before things start to green up. Beyond that, not too far away from the time I like to frost seed clover. I'll do some frost seeding as far as new plots, but also, there's a couple that were new last year that I might, add a little bit more to as far as frost seeding as well. So I usually do that, and later next month, mid to late March is when I start to think about getting some of that seed on the ground. So that'll be coming up, and then I don't necessarily count shed hunting in there, but I'll get out and walk 2 or 3 more times, at least for half a day, just see what antlers I can pick up. And in turkey season, I plan to. I go to Nebraska every year to bow hunt out there, usually in late March or early April. So that'll be on the radar. I'm hosting a couple turkey hunts here in Iowa, mid to late April. So that'll take that. But, that's when you start to get into that time of actual spring planting, whether it's, clover plots or summer plots or corner beans, starting to get, make plans for that at least. Getting some fields prepped and, planting maybe in May or into June. So it's a busy time of year, but I've really come to love the off season almost just as much as the actual season. It's just fun making improvements, fun putting in the sweat equity, and it's fun just watching how the deer respond. It's busy and don't get me wrong, I love the hunting season, and I wasn't ready for this hunting season to end. I was having so much fun. But the silver lining was the final day of hunting season was the beginning of the off season. So that's kind of the way I look at it anymore. It's like it never truly ends when you enjoy every aspect of it.
Yeah. Is that so? Some of your timelines, like for your frost seeding, for like your May kind of planting, is that weather triggered typically for you? Like, hey, we've got our first stretch of 3 days in the 50s. It's time to get out there and it's time to start taking care of some of that frost seeding. Ground's still going to be hard, but we're starting to get into some of that warm up. Is it temperature driven, or is it just kind of time frame driven? It's
more time frame, I would say. I think frost seeding has become very, very popular, but I think it's still somewhat misunderstood. I think typically I'll just look at your average last frost date, right? So you look, all that information's out there, and granted, it can change year to year. Some years we have an earlier spring or later spring or whatever. But typically those frost dates, you have an average. And so if you count back, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from that average last frost date, your goal with frost seeding, really all you need is to catch just a handful of those last frosts. And that's enough to get that small clover seed into the surface just a little bit. And it's going to germinate just from the thawing and heaving of the ground. A lot of guys, we get some of these nice, like today, it's going to be mid 60s, which is crazy. And then snow tomorrow, typical Iowa weather.
Same here. I think we're going to be 58 and we're getting an inch of snow tomorrow.
Yeah. But guys, you get this warm, this kind of teaser spring, and you get guys get antsy to get out there and do something. So I'm going to get frost seeding done. Well, you're taking a gamble. One, there's more risk for runoff and all that type of stuff the longer that seed sits there without germinating. But two, you get a stretch of these warm days, and you get that young clover to actually pop and germinate, and then you get some hard frosts or freezes after that. That young clover is not very hardy, not very strong yet, and a lot of times you could wipe out a plot. So there's just not that much to gain from jumping the gun on this, and even if let's say I wait till late March to frost seed, and we just never get those, spring comes early and just don't get 3 or 4 frosts after that, which could happen. Well, then it just becomes rain. The rain's going to now do the job that the freeze thaw was going to do. So it's not like you miss the opportunity to grow a clover plot if you don't hit those frost cycles just perfect. So I don't know. I just think there's more risk in doing it early, and you don't really have that much to lose by waiting towards the end of our freeze thaw cycle.
Yeah. Wait, does that help you? We've just been talking about it. He had said something this week. He's like, "Hey, do you have your drone? I think I'm going to go out and just do some frost seeding."
I wanted to go out so bad. I fell into the trap you just said. I get the itch. It's warm, and I'm like, and I'm listening to you. I'm like, yep, he's talking about me.
He's talking about me.
I got nailed. I got sucked in.
Yeah. But it's hard though. You get antsy, and now we've taken some time off here, even though our Metro subunit season goes late. I mean, we've really been kind of done since the middle of December, I guess. But you sit around for a while, and at least like I shoot a winter league for archery, so it's like I've got something to kind of like keep me in the zone with it. But all of a sudden you don't have anything going on, and you're like, well, I feel like I should be doing something, so you start getting antsy and you start wanting to do some of that stuff. And
I get it. I'm the same exact way. I 100% get it. It's just like the more I went on, the more I realized like there's just more risk involved in doing it early is all. You don't lose anything by being patient on the frosting side. But frosting in general is such a good way to get seed in the ground. Like it's almost the easiest food plot you can plant is by doing it the frost seeding way.
Yeah, and I do it. I'll wait a little while now that you've kind of put me back in my lane.
Well, but, up there especially, you guys have an even later last frost date.
Yeah, it might be May actually.
I think ours.
Go on.
Yeah, I think ours is like April 13th or something is like the average last frost date.
And when does our turkey season start? So we have 6 seasons.
On period B, and that's like the 16th, the week of the 14th through the 20th or whatever of April. So early April is when our turkey season starts.
So I try to get out there just a little bit, like you said, though they're weak and not strong in strength. If they pop and I get some more green, and it's not something that's going to last for the whole season rolling into the summer and then when we plant regular, but at least it gives the turkeys a little bit of action. And I do a lot what you said, excuse me, we have a blind set up. I have 2 blinds set up and I didn't even hunt last year. I just sat there and watched people. I don't have the camera stuff that you have and do that, but I like just sitting there. I've had those 6 seasons. I sit out there multiple times and I don't bring out the bow or the gun. I just sit there and watch and talk. And sometimes it just rejuvenates yourself.
That's awesome. Yeah. And to kind of put a bow on the whole frosting thing, mostly because I don't want guys to take it the wrong way or get any bad information. Like most likely you will be fine if you do it early. I've done some side-by-side experiments where I'll frost seed, half a plot early just to see how it does. And then at a normal time frame, like later in March, and then check it, in June and kind of compare. And there's typically a difference, but it's not like it's a dramatic. It's not like the other one didn't have any clover germinate. So most likely you'll be fine. It's just if there's no risk in waiting and there is risk in doing it early, it's like why get in a rush? And so I think kind of a general rule of thumb is if you just Google your average last frost date for your area, and to be safe, count back maybe 3 weeks from that date. So if it's mid-April, now you're looking at mid to late March. That's a kind of a good rule of thumb to go by for trying to get seed on the ground.
Awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so I see in Wag's notes here, I know you have a great passion for, scouting and like doing your land development and, kind of building your farm into what it will eventually be, over the course of the next couple of years. You're really passionate about self-filming and you're a hell of a deer hunter. So if you had to rank them 1 to 3, what would be your biggest passion to number 3 going hunting, self-filming, and the video production side and land management?
Gosh, that's so tough.
It's probably the toughest one you'll get today.
Man, I feel like it depends on the time of year you ask me.
Okay, so right now it's land management.
Yeah, exactly.
October 31st, it's going to be hunting.
Yeah, it's so hard because and I'll try to give you an answer just so I didn't avoid the question. But the reality is they all work together so much. Like
Right.
the hunting and the filming, especially to me, I can't have one without I'll never go to the woods without a camera. Like I mean, I don't care if nobody ever watched another second of my footage again. I would still film the same way I do today. You know, maybe I'd do less interviews and stuff like that, but I'd still try to capture every encounter at the highest level possible. And so to me, it's like the filming is part of the hunt. I don't know hunting without filming anymore. So it's kind of combined there, but yeah, I won't say I enjoy the video production process. Like it's fun creating something that's more watchable for guys from an entertainment perspective. So just because of that, because you kind of threw in the editing and production, like I'll put that last.
Okay.
Even though the filming, again, it's almost as much of a passion for me as the bow hunting itself. But I'll rank that third. It's just with the caveat there. And then between hunting and land management, again, they work together so much, but I think for now, I'll still put hunting number one, land management number two.
Okay. I think that's a very fair answer. Because the video production side of it's a necessary evil, but it's also something that can be super, super tedious, and it's very time consuming and, just getting it right and going back and rewatching your edits and doing some of that stuff. I mean, it can wear you down for sure, but you want it to look right. Yeah. You got to do some of that stuff just to pull the final product together. Right, Wags? Right.
Yep.
We were just talking. We have a guy. I mean, I've always brought my tripod and stuff out when I've been hunting out of the rednecks or the ground blinds. And Wags just met somebody that's like a video or photography student at one of the local universities that is like willing to come out and film for us. And I'm like, dude, if you have anybody that will film for us, I'm fine with it, because it's just, it's hard. And it's like, even if you are in a redneck or you've got some of that cover where a lot of that is protected, it's still a lot of kind of hit or miss. And, it just adds an extra element. And like when I shot that doe early this year, I was like, I don't care at all. It's all happening so fast. I just need to shoot this deer. I don't even care if I get it on film. I just want to make sure that I put a good shot on this deer and we can celebrate the recovery. It's just, it's one added element that makes it so tough.
Well, so what we're going to do is I have a couple, the ladder stands that I have, I put in, I put in an extra ladder just to get me up a little bit higher. But what we're going to do this year, and I'm assuming you're a lot different because you're more prepared. I'm just going to put maybe a 5-foot section of walking stick, and then I'm going to put a hang on above me. Or do you say that's too high? That deceives. I remember when you were talking earlier in the conversation, you don't get the depth, you don't get the distance, you don't get true. Do I put our guy who's going to do it, do I put him level with me, or can I put him above me, or does that sound foolish?
So I can tell you what I would do, but there are advantages of that cameraman being up above you. One, it's like you spread out the visibility a little bit too. Like if there's two people at the same level, you have a higher chance of getting spotted as opposed to if you're at different levels.
Yep. It's a big cluster as opposed
that
to
makes sense.
Like a thickness.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes sense in my mind, but I still prefer, if I have a cameraman, I'm almost same level with them, or I may go like a foot higher just so that they can get over my shoulder. Like if I'm here, and they're perfectly eye level with me, they may not be able to get the deer because I'm in the way. So like a foot more maybe, and I'll have a foot ideally over my right shoulder. But the reason I like being close is from a communication standpoint. If a guy's 5 feet ahead of you and you're having to turn to talk to him, like, are you on? Are you on?
Yeah.
It's a lot of movement.
It's really hard, as opposed to like he's right here and he can whisper and be like, I'm on him whenever you're ready. Like that type of communication makes a ton of difference, because if you're not communicating, there's a decent chance, that he had a branch in his way, or, whatever it was, he just wasn't ready for you to shoot, and you shot, and now, it could have been avoided with a little bit of communication that you don't get at that further distance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you pointed out, you have to be quiet. It's so different with turkey season because you can kind of be loud. You can kind of have some of those conversations. I learned that lesson with duck hunting this year. And sometimes, like, if my wife and I aren't watching something, I'll turn on. She's like, "Oh, just turn on a hunting show and, watch whatever you want." And she's like, as soon as they start whispering, I have to leave the room. I'm like, well, what do you expect them to do? They have to. And she always just is like joking around, like,
yeah.
I'm like, well, we're going to have another one of those conversations today. So,
sure.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Wagner, do you have anything else for him, or is there anything else you want to touch on or tee him up for?
No, we'll put this back into your court. You decide if there's anything you wanted to mention that we didn't, there's something that you wanted to address, something that's tighter to your heart, or something that you really believe in that maybe others maybe avoid, or something like that. But I'll put it up to you. But I do want to talk to you before you leave off the air. I want to dig deeper into your baseball career.
Yeah. It was not as extensive as yours, I'll tell you that. But I always love talking baseball. But yeah, as far as, I don't have anything specific. Just in general, I kind of started this podcast off saying where I'm at from a mentality standpoint, career standpoint, just keeping it fun, and that's the biggest thing I would encourage people is keep it fun and keep it for you. Like I always, kind of a little slogan or tagline is hunt for you. Don't hunt for the people on social media. Don't hunt for, your buddies even. Just hunt the way you want to hunt, no matter what that is. Make decisions on how you want to hunt, because the way, technologies are progressing and just the day and age that we live in, there's always going to be, things that are being decided, things that are controversial, things that, are changing the game of hunting the way we do it. And the only way that you're ever going to be happy is if you continue to operate by, of course, as long as it's legal, operate the way you want to do it. And as far as hunting,
sure.
whether that's weapon choice, whether that's, manipulating movement, whether that's using drones, using cell cams, using all this type of stuff, like you have to draw your own line on how you want to do it. Do not make decisions based on what other people think, or what you think, how they'll think of you. Like that, it's just silly to when you step back and think about how much time we really have, how many seasons we have left of good hunting in our lives, to make decisions based on what we think other people are gonna, how they're gonna view us. So just hunting for yourself and keeping it fun and enjoyable, and keeping hunting what it needs to be. Just it's a very challenging thing to do in today's day and age because of social media. But that's my challenge to guys is just to always remember why we do this, and keep it fun, and make your hunting decisions based on that and that alone.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yep.
It's very well said. Jared, do you want to plug your sponsors or your partners quick and let everybody know where we can find you?
Yeah, as far as brands I work with, like the easiest way to do it is just to follow along with the hunts and the products I use. Not all of them I work with. I use whether I work with them or not, I'm using products that I like to use and believe help. But obviously supporting them is indirectly supporting me as well. So I appreciate any support on that end. But the easiest way to do that is just to follow along, especially on YouTube. I do have Instagram. People can follow me and reach out to me there. But YouTube is where I'm able to fully tell stories, not just short form entertainment stuff. Like YouTube, I always appreciate the following there, because I know it's guys that are they're hardcore, dedicated guys that want to know want to watch every failure
as
well
learn.
as the successes. Yeah, they're not just there from an entertainment standpoint. They want to learn. They want to have that experience of, legs, like you said, like being in the tree with me, and that's what I try to replicate on every produced hunt. So yeah, follow. It's just Jared Mills on YouTube. That's a good way. Subscribe and follow along there. But the other thing I want to say too is, guys sometimes hesitate to reach out to me, don't want to bother me, whatever. But and I'll admit I'm not always the best at getting back to people in a timely manner, because there's a lot to go through. But I do encourage guys, if they have questions about hunting, land management, food plot seed, what to plant, where to plant. I love helping guys, especially on the food plot seed, but just in general, whether it comes to filming or hunting. So my encouragement is, don't be afraid to reach out to me directly if you have questions that you don't want to leave a public comment or whatever it may be. I always enjoy helping and or at least trying to help if I can.
Yeah. Well,
thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy.
Yeah.
We greatly appreciate it, but thank you, Jared. And from a quick meeting at the ATA show before everything happened and got crazy in Indianapolis, thank you very, very much. We greatly appreciate it. Respect your time, everything you do, and keep doing it, because like I said to you, it may sound weird, but sometimes I feel like I'm in the stand. I don't know the difference between a camera, a lens, a 25-80, 90, 350, but I tell you what, sometimes I feel like I'm right in there with you. So I appreciate it. I greatly appreciate what you do.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Yeah, Jared. So we'll wrap it up here. I will actually put your contact, like your Instagram, your YouTube, all your links for everything in the show description. But and then we'll just wrap it up here, and we'll just take a couple minutes after we finish recording just to catch up about a couple of those other things. But man, it's been so great having you on, and kind of a legend in the hunting industry, and just somebody that I know a lot of people respect and appreciate the work that you put in, and with all the educational videos and the hunt recaps and everything. So we thank you for your time, and it's been about an hour and 20-ish minutes. So we'll wrap it up there. And if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Jared or reach out to us, and we'll do our best to answer it. So for another episode of the Flippin' Sticks and Throwing Lead podcast, Paul Wagner, Eric Tasker, thank you again, Jared Mills.
Thanks, guys.